welcome back to another episode of Monster Monday. Well, we're going to be doing something pretty special today. We're looking at a special character. He's from Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark. If you have followed me on Friday Night Frights, you would be familiar with this book. It's by Alvin Swartz, and the drawings are by Stephen Gamel. The story is coming from Scary Stories 3. This is about Harold the Scarecrow. So the story is to tell you a little bit about this wonderful toy the Vamphyre acquired. What I mean by acquired, you make your own decisions on that one. Excuse me. Still a little dribbled. When it got hot in the valley, Thomas and Alfred drove their cows up to a cool green pasture in the mountains. Maybe the Carpathian Mountains, I hope. To graze. Usually they stayed there with their cows for 2 or 3 months. Or for 2 months, I should say. Then they brought them back down to the valley again. The work was easy enough, but oh, was it boring. Try being immortal, talk about boring. All day the two men tended their cows. At night they went to the tiny hut they lived in. They ate supper and worked in the garden and went to sleep. It was always the same. Then Thomas had an idea that changed everything. Well, let's make a doll the size of a man. Well, some men are bigger than others, he said. It would be fun to make, and we could put it in the garden to scare the birds. It should look like Harold, Alfred said. Harold was a farmer they both hated. They made the doll out of old sacks stuffed with straw. They gave it a pointy nose like Harold and tiny eyes like Harold. Then they added dark hair and twisted frown. Of course, they also gave it Harold's name. Each morning on their way to the pasture, they tied Harold to a pole in the garden to scare the birds away. Each night they brought him inside so that he wouldn't get ruined if it had rained. When they were feeling playful, they would talk to him. One of them might say, "How are the vegetables growing today, Harold?" And the other make believe Harold would answer in a crazy voice, "Very slowly." And both laughed, but not Harold. Whenever something went wrong, they took it out on Harold. They would curse him, they would kick and punch him. Sometimes one of them would take the food they were eating, which they were both sick of, and smear it on Harold, the doll's face. That is very rude. "How do you like the stew, Harold?" he would ask. "You better eat it or else." The two men would howl with laughter. Ha ha ha, right? Well, funny. One night after Thomas wiped Harold's face with food, Harold grunted. "Did you hear that?" Alfred asked. "It was Harold," Thomas said. "I was watching him when it happened. I can't believe it." "How could he grunt?" Alfred asked. "Just as a sack of straw. It's not possible." "Let's throw him in the fire," said Thomas, "and that will be that." Let's not do anything stupid, Alfred, said Alfred. We don't know what's going on. When we move the cows down, we'll leave him behind. For now, let's just keep an eye on him. So they left Harold sitting in the corner of the hut. They didn't talk to him. They didn't take him outside anymore. Now and then, the doll grunted. But that was all. After a few days, they decided there was nothing to be afraid of. Maybe a mouse or some insects had gotten inside of Harold or were making those sounds. So Thomas and Alfred went back to their old ways. Each morning they would put Harold in the garden. Each night they brought him back in the hut. When they felt playful, they joked with him. When they felt mean, they treated him as badly as ever. One night Alfred noticed something that frightened him. Harold is growing, he said. I think the same, said Thomas. Maybe it's just our imagination. Alfred replied, we have been up here in the mountains too long. The next morning when they were eating, Harold stood up and walked out of the hut. He was climbing up on the roof and trotted back and forth like a horse on his hind legs. All day and all night long he trotted like that. In the morning, Harold climbed down and stood in a far corner of the pasture. The men had no idea what they would do next. They were very afraid. I would be too, wouldn't you? And they decided to take the cows down to the valley the same day. When they left, Harold was nowhere in sight. They felt if they had escaped a great danger and began joking and singing. But when they had gone only a mile or two, they realized they had forgotten to bring the milking stools. Neither one of them wanted to go back for them, but the stools would cost a lot to replace. I say forget about it. If you have a walking scarecrow around, well, forget about the stools. Be making stool in your pants, right? They really had nothing to be afraid of, they told one another. After all, what could a doll do? Just ask Chucky. He can tell you what he can do. They drew straws. Oh, how funny. To see which one would go back. It was Thomas. I'll catch up with you, he said, and Alfred walked on towards the valley. When Alfred came to the rise of the path, he looked back for Thomas. He did not see him anymore, but he did see Harold. The doll was on the roof of the hut again. And as Alfred watched, Harold kneeled and stretched out a bloody skin to dry in the sun. What do you think about that? So that was from Scary Stories 3. More tales to chill your bones. And that was scary. So if you have a scarecrow, you be nice to him, or he might skin you alive. So this Harold came from the movie Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark. If you have not seen it, it is a fantastic movie. It's live action from some of the stories in this book series. Very, very good movie. You could buy it on YouTube, I think, for $12.99. It streams on all kinds of your, what you call the social networking sites, I guess, or your movie players, or whatever they are. You could buy it. So let's take a look at Harold, the doll. So here he is, Harold. When I got it, it was pretty cheap because you could see the card is pretty banged up and it was almost open. But you can see the picture that was in the movie. 8-inch action figure, articulation, 14 points and all that. Special thanks to consultant Dr. Mego, sculptors Andy Koval, seamstress Rachel Baker. You can see the sketch, and it says world's greatest Mego monster. So I wonder if Vamphyre will get to be a Mego monster one day. I really like this picture. See, it has the little haunted house there in the back. Very pretty. So Harold, how are you today? You're looking good. Don't come and haunt me, please. So Harold, as you could see, is wearing tattered clothing. He has these wooden arms, nice articulation. He said, "Hi, Vamphyre." And both arms are like that, and they do stretch out just a little bit. I wouldn't put much pressure on them. Wearing pants that are tied on with string. He has nice clear feet, and his torso is clear to give the impression of the picture here. If it would have just been that little piece of plastic, it would easily break. And you could see that Harold has some skin hanging there. And look at the face. Fantastic sculpting. I like the hairdo. Very nice hairdo there, Harold. Here on the back, you can see he's all patchworked and buttoned. He's wearing blue jeans. The back of his head looks like a sack. And this is a mask that he is wearing. Kind of like another guy that we know that wore a mask from Texas Chainsaw Massacre. His articulation is very good. Legs stretch, feet move. I like the clear plastic. Very, very nice. Harold, you're very nice, Scarecrow. Yes, you're wonderful. You're beautiful. Don't come and hurt me tonight. So tell me what you think about this great looking action figure by Mego. Check out the movie if you so choose to. It's a very good movie and worth watching. It's called Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark. This action figure is very well made. I love Mego, how they do the clothing, and it's hand stitched and beautiful artwork. This is just beautiful sculpting on this action figure. So if you have an idea for an action figure, a horror action figure or Vamphyre, he might, if he has it, I'll review it for you. Also, I have some little monster toys that you got from the cereal boxes at the Count of Chocolate, and then you got the Blueberry. I have those little monster toys, some toys from those. I can review those too. So, anyway, please leave me a comment. I will answer back. I love answering back to you guys. Please share this video to help old Vamphyre out, help the channel grow so I get more views, and that way I could start doing giveaways like Joe Motion Videos 82. He does the I.G.I. Joes or whatever he calls them, the little military toys. He reviews those, talks about them. Pretty good guy, I think. I don't see him much. So anyway, until then, be kind to animals. Especially be kind to scarecrows. And be kind to everyone. Because you don't want me to come over and pay you a visit. So, this has been Count Vamphyre for another episode of Monster Monday. Have a very good night, if you can.